Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Let me scroll up in chat and do our quick hellos before shit starts. Gib, congrats on firsts. Are we surprised? Ribby, congrats on 150 coins. Pop, congrats on your first coin. Pop is the organizer of this event.
Cool.
Sarah, 99 coins. Start thinking about your sound. James,
get a coin.
hello. Do you ever get your coin, Vince?
Yeah, let me show you how many I have.
Oh, didn't you scam me once?
No, they're all legitimately acquired.
Pint, congrats on 152 coins. Enjoy your lyric. Vince, congrats on your 57th coin. All legitimate.
57 legitimately acquired coins.
Legitimately acquired coins. So just a disclaimer before the raid gets here. I'm ill. I'm sick as a dog, and I feel
sick, dude.
I feel fucking sick. I'm feeling a little wiggly. But the good thing is that most of the talking, hopefully, will be done by my guest.
I'm preparing one-word answers. I'm gonna be like a magic 8-ball.
You know, wait, Vince, have you seen my Ask Drew command?
No.
Oh
Who's
my
Drew?
god, my bot. You can ask Drew anything. Ask Drew,
Okay.
is Vince cool? Let's see what she says. Yay! Ask again later. I think she's undecided on you. Are Spoobu's coins legit? No! Drew is calling you out.
Okay, you're gonna listen to a clanker? I'm flesh and blood, dude. Who are you gonna listen to? Bots hallucinate all the time. You can't trust them.
She's not generative AI, she's just a file.
That's what you want to think. That's what she wants
Sup?
you to think. Hey, what's up? Do your homework.
Yeah, do your
loser.
homework, Chris. She said she's gonna do it. I'll hold her to it. Okay. Jess, congrats on your 47th coin. There's the raid. Welcome in, Apricot Raiders. Hello, Pop. Hello, Tom. Hello, Raiders. I'm gonna turn off alerts now so that we don't get distracted. Apricot, welcome in. Gib, you better stop. Okay, alerts are getting yeeted into the abyss. Because I want to be able to focus on the lovely content we have for you today. If you haven't been here before, my name is Lilia. I typically stream RPGs and indie games. This is a very different kind of stream for me. Emma Nessie, welcome in. Merixosaurus, I fucked that up so bad. Welcome in. Pickley, welcome in. But yeah, this is very different for me, but very exciting. I will be interviewing my brother here, on all things D&D, some Baldur's Gate stuff, some game dev stuff. I'm very sick right now, so we're gonna do our best. I might be a little bit out of it. But yeah, Vince, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Like Lilia said, I'm her flesh and blood on the topic of clankers. I don't know. I'm Lilia's brother. Yeah, I'm a game developer and designer. I've been in the industry for about 7 years. I've been playing D&D and running D&D games for about 10. So, if either of those things make it seem like I might have something insightful to say, then stick around, I guess.
Just a heads up, our captions kicked the bucket, so I shared a new
okay.
link with you, I just noticed. Yeah, we're fighting through it, Pickley. We're doing our best. Just started playing D&D this past year, so I am actually going to be starting my first campaign with Vince as the DM. I've been very hesitant to get started. Very, very hesitant. So there's a lot of like old VODs of me saying, I'll never play D&D. I love that you guys love it, but I'll never play D&D. So I think he's feeling very proud of himself lately.
Just like she'd never play Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, one of my favorite games ever now. It's a little overwhelming for sure, but it's a lot of fun if you just get into it. Yeah, I'm hoping to like give it a solid chance and see what happens. Before we get into the questions, alerts are off just because I have unmedicated ADHD and I get distracted really easily. And also it's just disruptive to when I'm trying to like listen to my brother's answers. And if I miss chat, it's because I'm focusing more on the interview content itself. But based on how quickly we get through these questions, we might have time for questions from chat afterwards. It really depends. So we have 3 hours. Pop, again, thank you so much for going live a bit early, just because of my condition. But yeah.
The ADHD or something else?
The sickness, but the ADHD also. Why do the captions keep kicking you out? I'm gonna invite you again. Are you closing the browser?
No.
Oh. Interesting. Well, if the captions break, I apologize. Usually it doesn't give me this much trouble. But we will do our best. Accessibility fail. Oh, and now you're seeing the caption screen and not the questions. Whoops. Expert. Professional. Professional. The human condition. Oh my god. All right, let's get into it. A lot of these questions are multi-layered because I didn't know how to split them up. So if you ever need a reminder as to what the questions are, Vince, you can just open up stream and they're on screen. So the first one I have is, what got you into Dungeons and Dragons? And at what age did you first start playing? Were you a player or a DM first? And do you remember your first campaign or character?
I do very well.
Yeah?
Yeah, I started playing D&D in college. It was my second year, so I was 18 at the time, and I was in my first year of college. I was just in a 1-year program, just for general art. I'm not an artist, also, and I thought I could be at the time.
He made all my
and then
emotes. Just saying, all the skeleton emotes.
No, I didn't. I make all of them.
You made all the skeleton ones.
There you go. That 1 year, that's what that was for. Came in handy. And then I entered a new program, and it was during that first year of that program that, I was just invited to play D&D by someone who was very excited. I think we were all new. There were like 4 or 5 of us. At the time, we were playing 3.5 edition. So the edition that would go on to become Pathfinder is the one that we were playing. So there were a lot more skills. I remember crossbows worked funky. I was a bard, and then crossbows, you didn't need any good abilities to use them because they're mechanical. So you didn't get like bonuses on damage. So they changed it in the new ones where it's like, oh, if you have high dexterity, then you're good with bows and with crossbows. But I kind of liked in 3.5 that it was like crossbows. It's like, it's point and shoot. Like,
how good do you have to be?
Yeah, exactly. So remember that was like my signature weapon. And my characters, this is all so embarrassing. My first character was a bard with amnesia. Classic new player thing. I don't know how to make up a backstory, so I had amnesia. It turned out I was a cultist or something.
Oh, fun.
Although, like most D&D games, that game never came to an actual close. It just sort of stopped after a point. I was a bard. I don't know if 3.5 had subclasses. Like, I don't remember there being a subclass. But anyway, I was a bard, and my character's name was Nox, after Albel Nox from Star Ocean Till the End of Time.
That is incredible. Was that the Star Ocean that had like the space station? That's all I remember.
I think they all have space stations. They're all spacey.
Oh, then that's not helpful at all. Is that the one you had the giant guide for?
But that's the one that I played.
You had a huge guide for it? Okay.
I still have it in the closet somewhere.
That's cool.
And then I gave my character like at the time, like a Demon Souls boss moniker. He was Nox, the elusive master of trickery and charm.
That's incredible.
I was trolling the whole time, basically. Like, I didn't know what role playing was really.
Yeah.
I was just goofing around. We were all kind of goofing around. It was very much as they call it now, a beer and pretzels kind of game, where it's like, you're showing up to hang out.
Yeah.
And you're all fucking around. I remember we would constantly riff on the names that the DM came up with for things. And one time he was drawing on the whiteboard, saying like, "This is the world that you guys are in." Everything was on the whiteboard. Absence, just draw it. Because we were in a classroom on campus, and that's where we played everything. And so he's drawing. He's like, "This is where the campaign takes place. This is like this thing up here." He's like, "This is the name of the country you're in." And then like, "This is some other place. And he said, "This is whatever the fuckistan over here." And then
that's the name he gave it.
That became the title of the game, was The Adventurers of Whatever the Fuckistan or something.
That is incredible. Oh my god.
What was the rest of the question?
I think
I
you
already
answered
forgot.
most of it. Is what got you
Okay.
into it was this was a group of friends at college. You were
Hmm.
18.
Hmm.
You were a player first, it sounds like, and then
Yeah.
your first campaign was during 3.5 D&D, and your character was Nox, the super fucking trickery something or other.
Wow, you're doing a little recap.
Yeah,
You'll be a great note taker
I'm an
in the game.
active listener. Okay. What I guess because this is kind of off the dome, but at
But
what point in like playing D&D were you like, "Oh, I'd be interested in being on the DM side of things?"
I never really. It wasn't my own thought. It was I
Oh.
had another friend, maybe like a year after that, who suggested that I run a game because he wanted to play,
Oh.
and we had other friends who wanted to play. And he's like, "You should run a game for us." And that was the first time that the thought crossed my mind. I'm like, "Oh, I guess I can do that."
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
awesome.
so we just ran with it. We played fifth edition.
Awesome. So a bit of
We got into
external, not pressure, but like encouragement.
yeah, yeah.
Because you're
And
really
when
good at it. Like, not that I've played D&D with you, aside from like that one-off that I wasn't really putting my whole heart and soul into. But like, you're a good storyteller. You're good at like. Actually, I have questions about this, so let me shut the fuck up.
okay.
Okay. So, what do you enjoy most about each role? So, DM versus player, and which do you prefer? We'll do that one first, and I'll do the second one after.
Ooh. The thing I enjoy most about being a player is being surprised, I think. Which you still do get as a DM, like the things that the players do can surprise you for sure. But as a player, you're really immersed in the progression and the mystery of the game and the reveals that you'll be confronted with. Truths about your own backstory. You know, you leave little things in there, and not just that, but about the campaign in general. If it's a well thought out adventure that you're playing in, you know, I've definitely been in games where that was not the case, and so it was not super exciting for me. Um, and expression of your character through game mechanics is probably the other thing. Where you do still get to do a bit of that as a DM when you're coming up with monsters to fight and NPCs and be like, you know, what's a cool gimmick, for lack of a better word, that this monster can do that expresses something about their role in the narrative or their role in the world, you know? Like if you have a villain that's, you know, like an archbishop. It's like, you know, what kind of abilities can you give them to express their role, and then give them fun names that you can then shout out at your players. But coming up with a character, it's like, oh, what kind of things would my character be skilled at? How are their abilities an expression of who they are? I think that's a lot of fun. Character making, I think a lot of people will tell you that making your character is like some of the most fun. A lot of people have like chronic character making tendencies where they're constantly making
Aren't
new
those
ones.
just OCs? People
Essentially,
drawing
yeah,
their OCs and stuff.
yeah, it's the same kind of creative expression, I think. It's a way to legitimize that hunger for storytelling that I think everyone kind of has in them in a way. And when you're a kid, you know, or an adult with a healthy hobby, that's expressed through OCs,
Yeah.
that you draw and paint or whatever, or book. And it's a way to standardize that and give a framework for it, and then a way to express it as well with other people, with your friends, you know, and have a good, fun, shared experience. Um, so that's the player side. Favorite part about being a DM is doing the surprising, I guess. When I'm a player, I like to get surprised, and when I'm a DM, I like to do the surprising, where you have those moments where players are like, "Oh my god, holy shit!"
Yeah.
Um, you know, a villain comes up from behind and stabs the other villain in the back in the mid monologue, and they're all, "What the fuck is going on?" You know, moments like that.
Yeah.
Very, very cathartic, you know, and it's nice, you know, especially in. I talked to a lot of people, you know, because I went to college for game design, right? and I was fortunate enough to move that direction in my career. But that's not the case for everyone, right? Where they may not end up in game design, but some other aspect of game development. They might end up in QA or whatever else, or maybe they don't end up moving into the industry at all. Um, and they say like, I asked them, it's like, what's the thing about, being a game designer that's appealing to you? It's like, well, expressing your ideas and having them be recognized and enjoyed by others. It's like, okay, on what scale do you need that to be happening to be fulfilled, right? Because sure, you can make a game that hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of people play that has your creative work in it, and there is a satisfaction to be had there. But I don't know, it's very fulfilling to create things for your friends and enjoying them together, and then the results are also immediate, right? When in actual game development, you're spending years on something and collaboratively, right? Like the amount that you put into something, what percentage of the game is that by the end of it, right? It's not like your work. You're not like an author or like a manga artist or whatever, where you're doing everything yourself. You're like, this is my thing. It's a collaborative effort, which is not to say that the satisfaction of having it out there is diminished for that reason. But when you are a DM, it's like you're the boss, dude.
It's all up to you.
It's all you. You are putting it together week to week, and then within days or hours of you preparing it, you're seeing how your intended audience is experiencing it.
Yeah.
And you can either learn very quickly from that because you get to see it, or you get to enjoy the fruits of that immediately because you're getting that feedback right away.
Yeah. I have like a personal anecdote that came up when you're talking about like, oh, you get to create something for someone to enjoy. And I just remember very vividly, I don't know if it was over the summer, we had a lot of time in our hands, but you made these like really elaborate like board games. I contributed like 2%. I like colored in my princess character or whatever, but you made like this board game with like multiple levels and all these characters. It was basically like Fire Emblem on paper. And I just like, I guess growing up, or like not as a child and not me as an adult now, I'm sure there was a period of time where I was like, why did he put so much work into like these board game things when like all I did was like want to be a princess? Like I wasn't really that, I guess, engaged in the narrative, or I don't think I was. But yeah, it's like you've always kind of had this passion for like creating stuff for people to enjoy.
This is true. I never thought about it that way. I don't remember how you engaged with it either.
I don't think it was very productive. I just remember the smell of the turquoise Sharpie and my princess.
For that, it was the journey more than the destination.
Yeah. Creating the actual thing.
It was a Fire Emblem ripoff.
Yeah, it really was. It was like Fire Emblem in space. It was neat.
And we had cards for the abilities.
I don't remember that part at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the cards at all. But yeah, sorry, bit of a derail, because I was thinking of that, because you've always been creating worlds and stuff even before you were doing DM stuff or game dev. But related to what you were saying before about like you see your preparation either succeed or fail based on, or not fail, but like go the way you expected or not when you're doing it live with your players. What goes into all that preparation, and how do you account for so many possibilities? Like you said, players doing things you don't expect, or players not engaging with the narrative you created in a way that you kind of anticipated.
Well, there's a certain amount of buy-in that you expect from your players. The players have a responsibility at the table to make a fun experience with everyone else as well. And so I think early on, especially with young people back in college when I was a teenager, you would definitely get into games where it's like you arrive in a town and someone's like, I want to pickpocket every single person in the town. And it's like you're dominating game time by doing that, and you're not like, nothing's really happening for anyone else at the table, right? You're just sort of taking up time. Did the DM think about what's in all 70 people in the town's pockets? Probably not. Yeah. And it's that's inconsiderate player behavior. And so the first thing is just making sure that everyone understands. It's like, hey, depending on the kind of game that you're running. Like, this is what we're doing. These are the parameters within which you all as players fit, which is typically you are heroes and you should be interested in doing the adventure. If your character is like, the lone wolf, like, I don't work with anyone, I don't want to be the hero, I'm anti-hero guy. Your anti-hero should still have a good reason to want to adventure.
Yeah.
And if your character doesn't want to adventure, then you probably just need a new character. Well, I know a lot of people will use that as justification for antisocial play at the table by saying that's what my character would do. And so if you can get that wrangled, that helps a lot. And then from there, it's about presenting your players with interesting choices and being prepared for the decisions that they make. Because if you present something that's open-ended, your players aren't going to know what to decide. I think that there's the argument between, railroading versus open world tabletop games, and railroading, maybe not so much recently, but I remember a few years ago got a lot of bad rap for like, oh, my DM doesn't let us choose anything. Any decision that we make, they just overwrite it and then make sure that the story goes to the way that the DM wants to, which is definitely also an issue, right? There are not that I've really encountered them, but there are DMs out there who probably should just be authors if they want to tell a specific story.
Yeah.
Especially a specific story that's not about the players, because at the end of the day, it's their game. They're the heroes. They should feel like the heroes. Depending on the game that you're playing, right? Like, if you're playing Call of Cthulhu or whatever, then the player's role is to go crazy and die, essentially. You should still have the story be about that experience, right?
Yeah.
Because if the story could happen without the players, then there's no point for the players in being there, and they're also not going to feel very engaged. And there are times where you prepare something that the players don't do, and I think that I used to be a lot more worried about that, because it does take time to prepare stuff, but more recently, I've become more at peace with it and sort of revel in the missed opportunities. Being like, oh, you fools, you could have gone here and discovered this, but you didn't. Let's see what happens next because of that.
Yeah.
And there was a strong temptation, and I did this a lot in previous games. If something was missed, I would just like move it over and present it to them anyway.
Yeah, well, because they're not gonna know.
They don't know.
Yeah.
It's a totally valid way of doing it. And there are some things where I would still do that, because it's like, this is integral to the adventure that's happening. If they don't learn this piece of information, then they're not going to know what to do next, and it's not going to be very fun for anybody. So making sure you deliver those pieces of information to them. Just don't lock them behind challenges that have a potential to fail, I guess, because if the players fail at something, then that should be interesting and should add something interesting to the story. If the result of failure is nothing, then that's not a lot of fun. It's like you put in all this time of effort only for nothing to occur.
Yeah.
It should be, you put in all this time and effort, you didn't succeed, but there's an interesting consequence because of it. And if success is absolutely mandatory, then just give it to them. There's a temptation to be like, oh, we walk into a room, what do we see? And you, as the DM, know there's a lever hidden behind the podium that they have to pull in order to get to the next room of the dungeon. And if they don't do that, I don't really know what else that they can do.
Yeah.
And then you say, roll for perception. And it's like, oh, I rolled a 2. And it's like, you found it anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, what was the point of that? You're just wasting time at that point.
Yeah.
So either don't put the lever behind the podium, just put it out in the open, or be prepared for them to fail at that, and then say, what are the other options?
Yeah.
Let's say they don't find a lever.
Can you bust through the wall using like a strength
Maybe
check
there's another more difficult pathway that they can take, that they could have circumvented if they had found that lever, right? It's design choices like that that I think let you plan efficiently and in a way that's not going to frustrate you.
Mm.
And everyone's level of planning is different. Like I run my games online. I like a certain level of fidelity, and for some people that means playing in person. That means making miniatures and buying minis and painting them and building dungeons out of cardboard or 3D printing them. And for me, that means kit bashing top-down tokens to represent specific characters, or using dungeon draft to make a full color dungeon that looks like a top-down area. And I didn't always do like that. For like 6 or 7 years I would draw all my maps in Photoshop just because that's what I had.
That's incredible.
I put like a paper background, and then I just drew lines, and everything was very low detail. It was very much the marker on the whiteboard kind of style. And then so the higher fidelity you go, the more time it's going to take. Like if you're wanting to paint minis for everything, it's going to take you a lot more time. And then there's a temptation there to say, well, shit, I spent however long building this arena out of popsicle sticks and whatever, and my players are avoiding it. It's like, no, it's not an option. Like, they have to go.
You have to go.
Yeah, so
yeah.
That's a dilemma to which the only answer that I have is, well, maybe your popsicle stick arena didn't work out for that session, but, reskin it for some other dungeon that you're going to do down the road, right?
Well, like kind of what you do, like just moving things or like repurposing them elsewhere.
Yeah, it's not lost work. I was running a cyberpunk game one time, and I remember in the first adventure, they had the option they had 2 different leads, one of which would take them to a nightclub, one of which would take them to like a chop shop, like a garage. They pursued the lead to go to the chop shop, and then that's how that session ended. Each in Cyberpunk was very much like adventure of the week style, where it's like they would get a job, they would do the job, and they would get the conclusion all within the 1 3-hour session. And so the next time we played, it was a new gig, and this time it was a heist in a nightclub, the nightclub that I had already made for the previous week. Now I just use this time, right? So it's decisions like that which can help alleviate the anxiety of preparing things that the players don't engage with.
Right.
So in summary, if it's part of the adventure that the players do it, make sure it happens. That's in your control. The players with sufficient buy-in are only going to make decisions out of the things that are presented to them, because it's very difficult to think off the wall and be like, if you're saying like, oh, ahead of you there's a wizard's tower and a castle, which one do you go to? And they're like, what's behind me? Some disruptive antisocial players might ask you that question, but for the most part they're going to make a decision between the things that you present them.
Nice.
And so if you don't want there to be a decision, don't present them with a decision.
When it comes to like because that's kind of like covering the decision making of like how do you guide players in the right direction and making sure everyone's on the same page and no one's being an ass just for the hell of it. But when it comes to like building the dungeons or like world building, map building, stuff like that, how do you approach that? Like I've seen some people just like throw rice and like draw the border around the scattered rice. Like what's your approach for like when you're not doing a campaign that's in a pre-made world and you're building your own kind of universe?
So
what does that look like?
Do you mean map making like in a Tolkien lore-esque way, or like map making is like, this is the dungeon that we're going to explore today?
I guess both. Like on like the bigger level, like how do you plan out a completely original world and how much of it is relevant to the campaign, and then what goes into the dungeons? I'm curious about both.
Well, I've only ever done it once in the Tolkien-esque style, and that was for my D&D game. And when it made the map, I don't remember. I think I just drew shapes that were vaguely pleasing to me. And for me, it was my number one way of approaching it was like, how can I serve different types of fantasies that I'm interested in exploring? And then so for something like the Forgotten Realms, which is like, or was at least the default setting for Dungeons and Dragons for 5th edition, that philosophy was we're serving as many fantasies as possible. There are, there's all these different types of cultures in the world. There are other planes. There are spaceships. There's like everything, right?
Yeah.
Like anything you can think of, there's a fantasy for it. There's aliens. There's Cthulhu's. There's whatever. And for me, it's like I didn't necessarily want to go that broad, at least off the bat. But making a map, it's like, okay, here's my sword and board, War of the Roses, medieval kingdoms area. Here's my samurai area. Here's my Vikings area. Here's my pirate Caribbean adventure area. Maybe that's a reductive way of thinking about it, but you kind of have to get big picture when you start. And I would say that it's generally not that useful, honestly, to do off the bat. Because in terms of a creative exercise, it can be totally fun and interesting to do, but in terms of is that a prerequisite to running the game? Not at all. You really only need to know about what is in the immediate area of the at any given time, because that's where they are, and that's what's going to make the place feel alive and like it's reactive and like rooted in reality. I did that exercise of being like, what does the broader world look like? Just to help inform the decisions I was making on a micro level. And I kind of like throwing a bunch of things at the wall and being like, over here, this kingdom used to be in control by like a vivomancer that would create monsters out of, genetic material. And that's all I said about it. And then so I'm thinking of like, okay, we're doing the campaign, blah, blah, blah. A monster shows up. It's like, well, why? How? It's like, oh, well, I can use this thing that I wrote down earlier. I wrote one sentence about it, but now it's given me idea. That's like, oh, it's a remnant of that army of monsters. They still roam around or whatever. And so it can be useful for that purpose, but not at all a requirement if you want to run or play D&D. What town are you in right now, and what is the nearest dungeon? What's the story there? That's really all you need to answer if you want to play the game. But the other stuff is fun, right? And you just have to accept that no one's going to care as much about it as you do.
Yeah.
I have like a wiki for my world, and no one's read it except for me.
I'll read it!
No, but it's there for inspiration, right? If someone's playing a cleric, they can be like, oh, what are the gods? What are my options? Or like, I want to be from this kind of place. Are there any places in the world that match that vibe? And so it can be fun for that and bring some more flavor to everybody's characters. In summary, the most useful thing is definitely that it just gives you nice little nuggets of inspiration. If you don't dive too deep, you can go crazy and be like, this is the history of every nation in my world and the war of the gods where this guy killed that guy and Shebeth begat Abisheth or whatever, and you can go all biblical with it, but the minutia is not going to matter to anybody, except you, and as long as you're okay with that, then go for it.
Right. So the creating a whole world is not as crucial as like getting the towns and like the areas your characters will actually be engaging with. So when
it's the adventure first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what is the adventure about? Who are they interacting with? Where are they going?
Yeah, it's not gonna be like a history lesson for your characters. You're like,
no, because history lessons are very boring.
Yeah.
Also, no one cares about history. They only care about it if it's contextualized. Like if you talk about, and then this god killed that god, and then the devils of the 9 hells invaded this area. It's like, who cares? But if you find someone's been murdered in the street, it's like, oh, it's a cultist who's trying to summon this god, and this is their deal. Then it's like, okay, well, that might matter.
Then it's relevant.
The narrative of the game.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't really care.
Gotcha. Okay. And so on the smaller level, what goes into like designing a dungeon? Like, do you have a plan, or you just kind of like pick a random layout, or like are there pre-made layouts that you can build stuff around? Like, what goes into that?
There are pre-made layouts, and I will use, now that I use like full art maps and stuff, um, I will use like pre-made ones for like more arena style. It's like, oh, we got into a fight in the forest or in the hills or something where it's not really a dungeon. But for dungeons, I do still like making them myself. And where I always start with any encounter is, what are the monsters? For D&D. D&D is a game about fighting monsters, right? In something like Cyberpunk, where it's not a game about fighting, really. You do fight, there are gunfights and stuff or whatever, but there's many more avenues of intrigue and discovery that are more robustly laid out within the rules. I'll start with, what is the area? Like, so for the nightclub, it's like I literally Googled like a floor plan for a nightclub,
Awesome.
and I just use that for the thing, and then it's like I thought about it realistically because this is a world set in the future, but it's like grounded in our reality, right? Where it's like, okay, and this is the kitchen, and these are the bathrooms, blah blah blah. This is where the objective is going to be located, and how do we make the path from here to there interesting. But for D&D, which is a game where 90% of the rules are about fighting monsters, there aren't rules for like when your crew comes up on another crew who's got more aura, and we do aura fights, and then maybe the other crew will back down because your aura is so strong. That's a real mechanic in Cyberpunk.
Is it actually?
Yeah,
I thought you were just making fun of like aura points and like Gen
No.
X stuff.
I forget what it was called, but I remember when we played like a rival like crew like rolled up on the party, on the gang. I don't know, whatever you call it in Cyberpunk. They were like exiting an area, and the rival crew came up and they're like revving their engine, and the crew's like standing there like, well, you gonna do something? And there's some rolls that happen. It's like, oh, your guys' aura was more powerful, and then they chickened out and they just left.
Is it literally called aura?
No, I think it's street cred or something.
Okay.
I don't remember what it's called. This was a few years ago. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so D&D is a game 90% about fighting monsters, and so I always start with the monsters. Really, for anything, whether it's adventures or dungeons, it's like, who's responsible for this mess that the heroes now have to clean up? And then that's what you start with, and what's going to make an interesting encounter. And then when you have your monster, it's like, okay, where is the monster located? What is their lair? Or if it's like maybe they're messing up a castle or something. And then so you kind of pick your location based on that. The party needs to go fight goblins. It's like, oh, these goblins have taken over an abandoned mine. And then so you get those two pieces of the puzzle together. And the third piece, it's like, okay, now as we move through the dungeon, as we move room to room, what are the individual encounters in the area? Which comes back to, you guessed it, monsters. What types of goblins are we fighting in each room?
Yeah.
What are the challenges they're presenting? Is there something interesting we can do? Maybe there's a giant, hole in the middle of this part of the arena that the players can use to like knock enemies into, or maybe they can get over the hole somehow with magic and then skip a portion of the area. So the dungeon is encounter arenas and then decisions. I think playing RPGs is all about making decisions. And then so your job as the dungeon master is to present them with interesting decisions. So the lever behind the podium, right? It's like, oh, do we look around here and investigate, or do we move on and press on through this area? Or in the goblin mine, I see a giant hole, and then I see another path going that way. It's like, do we try and figure out how to get across this hole, or should we go this way now? I walk down that way. Oh, I hear noise coming from this way, but I see light trickling down from this way. That's my next decision. Where am I going to go from here? How many resources do I still have? What is my objective? Because a game where you don't make decisions is a novel.
Yeah. Like you were saying before, like if a DM has like one story and it can only go one way, and the players don't get to make decisions, and perhaps they should just be an author.
Yeah, and I think it's the case as well for game development in general, especially RPGs. But even within other genres, Games that don't let you make decisions about the narrative, there's still always these little decisions that you're making. You're playing an action RPG. It's like, oh, how do I build my character? What perks do I get? These are the things that have become, from the RPG DNA, that have become so popular. They're in everything now, right? You see RPG-like elements in pretty much every game at this point. At least mainstream ones.
Yeah.
I forgot what the question was.
It was just like building dungeons and stuff, but you pretty much covered it, I think, is like you start with like what monsters are going to be in the area, and then like how can you create different paths, how might players engage with those paths. And
I wouldn't overthink it more than that, right? You could literally plot out your dungeon in a flowchart. And if it looks interesting as a flowchart, then you're good to go, right? I've never done that, so that's not really good or actionable advice. But it made me think of that, and maybe I should start doing it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of advice, actually, you just did the perfect segue for me. What was the best or worst piece of advice you've received regarding preparing for or participating in D&D campaigns?
I am not sure. I have consumed so much dungeon or tabletop media over the last decade that it's like I don't know where anything came from at this point.
That's fair. Well,
that's a tough one for me.
The like source of where the advice came from, I guess, isn't. I mean, it would be nice to give credit where credit's due, but if there's anything that like stood out to you about like, you're like, there's no way I'd adopt that, or.
I was talking about a few years ago how everyone was really opposed to railroading, right? And then so the reaction then is to go super open. And I did a campaign like that, and I think it hurt the experience more than it helped it by giving the players too many decisions, and more importantly, too many uninformed decisions. I remember the worst part of the first game that I ran was when the players went to this island nation that was very autocratic. And they were there on very shaky terms diplomatically. And then so they're like, oh God, like we are trying to get this thing done, but we have to behave in this way. Otherwise they're going to get mad at us and kick us out. And my players reacted very, very poorly to that whole. Because they're like, we had no idea what we were supposed to do. We felt like every decision was the wrong decision. And I think that that issue came about from having it be too open-ended and being too obsessed with the verisimilitude of the world. The believability of the world should never come at the expense of the fun the players are having. It's like, sure, it would make sense that this nation is very suspicious of you and your army and your crew of murderers, monster slayers, but it's like they should not be so suspicious that you feel oppressed by the circumstances that you're in. You can't do anything because you're going to get in trouble. It's like, well, that's not, when you think about a heroic fantasy, Frodo didn't have to worry about doing paperwork or getting in trouble with his boss or something.
Well, for not being able to remember, that was a pretty good response, methinks. And this next question is definitely not for me, or definitely not self-interest, but if someone was interested in getting into D&D, what advice would you give them?
Take it easy and do what comes naturally. It's really not that big a deal. Like I said, my first character, I didn't really have a character, right? And I think that's a totally valid way to play. There's a lot of fun that comes from making a character. The act of role playing is like, what would my character do in this scenario, right? It's not doing voices, it's not adopting a new way of speaking. It's just, again, about how you make decisions. And then so I think that no one can really separate themselves from their character 100% anyway. Some of my favorite moments in D&D is when I'm like so as a player is like when I'm so shocked by what's happening, it's like I can't help but react as me and not
Yeah.
as my character. I'd be
Yeah.
like, oh, dude, what the hell? So the it's not a performance, it's a game, right?
Yeah.
So just have fun, play the game, have fun, take it easy.
Nice. Yeah, I do think that is a misconception, maybe because of like the like televised D&D campaigns, which are super fun. I never got into them personally, but like stuff like Critical Role, I think people, and maybe I'm projecting just based on what I thought, but I think maybe people like me would think that like that level of like kind of like acting or performing as your character is an expectation. And like that's where I was like, oh, I can never get into D&D because like I can't role play. But it's like, I think it's refreshing for people like me who might be a bit more hesitant to like get involved, to hear that like roleplay doesn't mean like the voices, like the performance of it. It just means making decisions as someone who's not quite yourself. And like,
Can I spoil Baldur's Gate 3?
Baldur's Gate 3
I'll just
spoiler warning.
I won't spoil it, but there were moments when you were playing Baldur's Gate 3, right, where you're like, I think my character would do this.
Yeah.
And you pick that option for that reason.
Yeah.
You were role playing. That's what it is.
Okay.
Doing voices is not what role playing is.
Yeah.
You get a bunch of theater kids into a room, which is what Critical Role is. They're gonna do theater kid shit.
Yeah.
I myself am a theater kid, so I enjoy doing it as well.
Yeah.
But it is by no means the essence of the game.
Yeah.
It's not a requirement.
Yeah. I'm a half-baked theater kid, so like I have like I love seeing it, and I love like when people really throw themselves into stuff, and I don't personally have the same like ability to execute. But no, that's really, I like that advice. Like, don't stress about it too much. Like, just like enjoy the game. I mean, it's a game. Like, if you're not having fun, it's a game.
Have fun. You know what you love.
Oh man. And hello anybody that came in. If I've been missing you, I'm so sorry. We're not blasting. We're actually getting quite good in-depth conversation on these questions. I'm proud of myself. Okay, so I know we talked about like Dungeons and Dragons specifically, and I know you talked about running a cyberpunk campaign. Are there other tabletop role-playing games, TTRPGs, that you enjoy?
None others that I've really fallen in love with. I played Cyberpunk Red, and I played D&D 3.5, and 5th edition, and now the new 5th edition. And I played a little bit of Pathfinder, and I played a little bit of Lancer, which is a mecha one.
Lancer?
Yeah, and I played... True. It's mechas. And I played a little bit of the Fallout RPG.
Oh.
And my favorites so far are definitely Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. There are things I like about 3.5 edition, but 5th edition is just so much easier to run. And Cyberpunk are definitely my favorite so far. I've been reading a lot, and I'm very interested in running Draw Steel by MCDM, which came out last month. And it seems really, really cool. I'm very interested in running it. I was honestly half debating whether or not the game that you guys are going to play in should be done in Draw Steel, but it's so new that the tools to run it online are like not as robust and easily understood.
Yeah.
And because you guys are new, it's like I would be new to that system, so we would all be kind of trying to figure it out. Yeah. So we're gonna stick with D&D.
And I mean, if things go well, we'll get hooked and we'll want to play more tabletop RPGs, anyways.
Yeah. So the things that I like most about each of those, 5th edition, I like. There's a lot of breadth to it in terms of the character fantasies. If you're like, ooh, I'm a new player. It's like, ooh, I want to be Aragorn, or I want to be Batman, or I want to be whatever. It's like there's a class equivalent that you can find. It's like, oh, that's serving the fantasy that I want to go for. Mm-hmm. And then also just the ease of use. I don't love super rules light games, because then it's just a little too. I do enjoy like the crunch of mechanics, and being like, I have the ability to make good decisions strategically in combat.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of systems out there where it's like much more theater of the mind, or much more like a single roll, or like there's no grid, like you don't think about positioning or anything like that. Which is totally fine. Some people really like to play that way. I do like the gaminess of it is something that I do still enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
and I think fifth edition has struck a really good balance between being super easy to pick up, but while also still offering that level of strategy.
Mm.
So I think it's a really good representation of the genre. I like Cyberpunk Red. Um, just because it's such a strong setting of the cyberpunk world. It's like so rich in all of its rules, how it presents them to you. Like everything is about like this is cyberpunk, this is future neon dystopia, and every single mechanic leans into that.
Mm.
Um, and like there's a whole and like the player roles are super well defined. Like when we played, like Jess's character was a hacker, and then so everyone's like moving through the the nightclub in this case, and while Jess is like hacking the security cameras and turning them to face away, and like that's his whole own mini game. Um, and so I like that it presents itself in such a way that it's super easy to buy into the fantasy
Mm-hmm.
in a way that everyone understands. It's like um, twice as bright, half as long is the philosophy of cyberpunk, where it's like you're trying to become a street legend. Dying is whatever. This world sucks
Mm-hmm.
anyway. You're trying to become as big and as bad as you can, as fast as you can. It's
Yeah.
all aura. It's all aura. Um, so I like that a lot about cyberpunk. Um, and Draw Steel, which I haven't played yet, but I'm most interested in that because there is no such thing as an empty result. We talked earlier about failure equals nothing happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's baked into the DNA of so many um, tabletop RPGs that run on a D20 die.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you miss, nothing happens.
Mm.
The enemy succeeds in resisting a spell, the spell fails. So I've waited however much time in this combat to get to my turn. I did something, nothing happened because I
Mm-hmm.
rolled bad.
Yeah.
That's a crappy feeling. It slows the game down because it means that no progress was made in that individual turn. And so what Draw Steel does is like if you do something, it works,
Mm.
and you are rolling to see how effective it is. There's no such thing as missing with your attack. There's no such thing as your spell doing nothing.
Mm.
And I find that very appealing for speeding up combat or making combat more enjoyable for the players because you're never like, my turn's wasted, like nothing
Yeah,
happened. I
nothing
just missed
happened.
okay, nice. Now I'll just sit around and wait for my next turn. Um, uh, that's the main thing. There's lots of other things that I'm very interested in about Draw Steel, but that's
Mm-hmm.
the main thing that I
Oh,
like about it.
exciting. Well, I do notice that we have ads coming in about 3 minutes. And
Mm.
the next question it's on the same like screen for me, but it's not directly related to that one. So I think this is a good time to take a little break. I'm gonna get some more tea, take a washroom break, and yeah, we'll be back in about 5 minutes ish, let's say.
Sure.
Okay, all right. I'll give you all the BRB screen, and we will be back in about 5 minutes. All right. Okay, hello, we return. Thanks for your patience while we went to the washroom and I got more tea. And let's keep chugging along. So my next question for you, Vincent, is how has D&D or TTRPGs in general contributed to your approach to game development and story crafting?
Well, that whole philosophy behind like playing games is about making decisions came from me working on D&D and not so much working on games. It's a philosophy that I developed before I was a game designer in a professional capacity. So that's the biggest thing. And then also, you know, when I was applying for my first job working on an RPG, just having that stuff in my portfolio, you know, classes that I had designed for Dungeons and Dragons and, you know, maps and stuff that I had made, you know, they like to see that stuff, which, you know, I'm not going to say that's always going to be the case, but at least for me,
D&D experience is all you need to get into the games
yes,
industry. You heard it here.
exactly. Well, no, just showing, like in this case, it was for a CRPG, so just showing that you had an interest in tabletop, you know, it was helpful in terms of getting the gig. I think because I didn't really have any. My experience up until that point was in children's games and like web development, so it wasn't like super aligned otherwise. But you know, you have other ways to demonstrate an aptitude and a passion for those things that you enjoy if you want to make them your career in some way. There are lots of ways to do that, and like I said earlier, whatever you think you would want to get out of being a game designer professionally, maybe you can get out of just doing it as a hobby, you know? I've definitely gotten many more moments of, you know, satisfaction from seeing something that I made being enjoyed by someone else. Just doing stuff on my own that I have been doing professionally. Again, just because the timeline is so much smaller, you know, I can make a mod for a game, or I can design a class, I can run for D&D, or I can run a tabletop game, and I can see how my creative work is impacting the real world and real people right away, you know? So that's awesome.
That's cool. Awesome. I think this does lead into my next question really well, because you're talking about your custom class thing, and we will get to that, but first I want to talk about Baldur's Gate 3 in general. Sorry. So how, because Baldur's Gate 3 was kind of like, we joke that it was my gateway drug into like D&D. So how does Baldur's Gate 3 compare to a tabletop campaign? Like, what are the similarities versus the differences?
That is a good question. I mean, it's mechanically very similar to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. It's like based on that rule set, so I mean, there's that at the very least. It's party-based play. And it is a linear adventure, which most adventures are going to be at a tabletop game. There's going to be a plan that the DM has. You know, it might vary slightly, but you know, it's an adventure that you run through with lots of interesting decisions to make, lots of fun characters. And when you look back at it, you realize that it didn't really make a whole lot of sense, which is kind of how it is in tabletop games as well, because it's about the week-to-week experience. Sitting down at the table and having a good time for the next few hours. And I think Baldur's Gate 3 definitely adopted that philosophy where, oh shit, a cool thing is happening, a cool scenario, a cool character, and we're just gonna deal with it right now, and then we'll move on to the next thing. And so I think it captured that very well. It's different in that it's a solitary experience. You know, it's just you on your own, not with a group of people, and it's much more selfish in terms of the amount of engaging with it that you get to do as a solo player, because you get to play everyone, versus when you're sharing a table with 3 to 6 people, you have to wait for your turn patiently.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of sitting around and waiting for everyone else to do their thing, and then you get to do your thing.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more immediate than an actual tabletop experience.
Yeah. And you can't save scum in real life.
No.
No. You can't
But
reroll.
you can ask your DM very nicely or bribe them, I guess.
Please let me reroll.
Yeah, exactly. Give you $20 for a +3 weapon.
Sorry. And before I go to this next question, just for anyone who doesn't know, the developers or the game designers who made Baldur's Gate 3 is called Larian Studios. So this kind of goes together. So what was your experience with Baldur's Gate 3? And if you were on Team Larian, what would you change about the game, if anything?
Well, my experience with Baldur's Gate 3 was like, wow, it's like I'm 13 again and playing Dragon Age Origins. It was just it was a very nostalgic experience for that reason, because it is so much of a BioWare game in its DNA, which makes sense because the Baldur's Gate series was BioWare's. And I think Larian really delivered on that. I enjoy it a lot more. And I know that's easy to say because it costed like 150 million more dollars than all the games probably.
Yeah.
But you know, Divinity. I don't know. I just never really got into them. I didn't enjoy the world or the combat very much.
Because Divinity is very... I mean, I guess BG3 is also top-down, but every time I've seen gameplay of Divinity, it feels very chaotic, and it feels really far away. Like, I feel like I can't even see the characters on screen, but...
Yeah. It was also built for real-time with pause, I think. I think turn-based is an option, and I really don't like real-time with pause games. They're just not my... I do find them chaotic, and it's like, oh, I gotta like select this group of people and move over here and like hit pause and unpause and watch for a bit and hit pause. It's just not my favorite.
Kind of like Sims? Like you set your Sims up to do things, and then you press play and let them go?
Kinda.
Okay.
Yeah, it's how the original Baldur's Gates were real time with pause. Most 80s to 90s CRPGs were all real time with pause. And so it's very much in the DNA of the genre. But it's just not my favorite. I much prefer turn-based. If I'm gonna be playing a strategy game, then turn-based is what I prefer. But then I don't really play that many turn-based games in general. So maybe just strategy games aren't really my thing generally.
Yeah.
I'm getting way off course.
That's okay.
I was talking about why Divinity never clicked with me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's that. The world of Divinity is so weird. Like elves eat body parts to like get vision. I know. I'm just like, I don't know. And
Scary.
I don't know. It was not my vibe. And the stories are all very like, you're a shitty prisoner and you're on a beach and you have to like roam around and try to get shit done. And like it felt like there was a lot less of an driving impetus for anything to be happening versus Baldur's Gate 3, which is like, oh shit, there's a worm in your head, you got to deal with that.
Yeah.
It's a very good inciting incident for a narrative to keep you interested,
because you don't really have a choice but to move forward as the protagonist of that game. Like,
oh yeah, and you are invested individually because it's like, it's my brain, I don't want my brain to blow up or get eaten or whatever. And in Divinity it's like, oh, you're a prisoner, you don't want to be a prisoner anymore. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's purely vibes. A lot of people really love Divinity. It is what put Larian on the map. So not yucking anyone's yum. My opinion is almost entirely vibes based. I don't think it's a bad game or anything.
No, this is not for you.
Yeah. What would I change about Baldur's Gate 3?
If anything, there might be nothing.
Might be nothing.
There might be nothing? That's fair.
Well, I mean, like, nothing worth mentioning, I don't think.
Okay.
Like, I couldn't transfer equipment between my party members. That was annoying. It's like, oh, they patched that in. It's like, okay, cool. I mean, like I said, the story itself, like, in broad strokes, is not very interesting, nor does it make a whole lot of sense. But it doesn't matter, right? It's like, the moment to moment is so good. The character moments are so good.
Yeah.
Oh, I would change Karlach's character.
Really?
Just on vibes, because like the story is that she was like a hard ass who spent years in like a demon army.
Yeah.
And then when she comes out, she's just very chipper considering her.
That's fair. I mean,
it feels like who she is and her backstory are like quite disconnected.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's something to be said. It's like, oh, the resilience of beautiful spirit that she could maintain such a positive attitude even through such tragedy. It's like, that's cool. I don't know if that's like very something that I can relate to, because I don't think I would be that positive.
No,
you know?
Me neither.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. Great for her that she is just like has an unparalleled tolerance for pain and misery.
Yeah.
But it just, if you're gonna go through pain and misery, maybe it could make you, a little more interesting.
Not my girl.
I don't hate Karlach or anything. But I just
Um,
found that to be a weird incongruency.
Yeah, I guess it would have been cool to see like moments of which like, not to say that like her joy or like her chipperness is a facade, but like if we could have seen more moments where she wasn't able to keep up that positive attitude, maybe that could have been
guess.
like,
But it's more
not
just like
enough.
she gets mad.
Yeah. It's not like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like Demon Army would like do a number on, like, in terms of like PTSD and stuff, but maybe it's just like too complex for one character.
I think the way that I would have changed it, I just would have made her a lot more ruthless, right? It's like she did what she could still be very happy and positive, but like she's only been able to maintain that by keeping a distance from things.
Yeah.
And like, when you're fighting demons in hell and even your allies are trying, it's like you can't be naive or you'll get killed. So if that could have been expressed more, then I might have enjoyed that. If it was like she was super nice to you, but then she's constantly advocating for like no mercy, like don't give anyone an opportunity. Like,
yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah. Like do not, especially since her whole thing is she was betrayed, right? It's like, do not trust anybody, don't give anybody nothing. She's very trusting for someone who went through,
who got fucked over so badly. Yeah,
so much betrayal.
Yeah, no, that's true. Kind of going back to like the first half of the question, I don't know if I've asked you this before or if I just have a bad memory, but what did you like play as when you did your first playthrough of Baldur's Gate?
I was a Dark Urge Vengeance Paladin, which makes me the same as I think most people who played the game. I think Paladin was the #1 chosen.
Yeah.
Class. Paladins are cool. I like Paladins.
Well, I was often like, people were surprised that I chose Dark Urge as my first playthrough, and not like I guess you pick your background.
You don't get one, basically.
Oh, you don't get a background? Okay.
You are, you're Bilbo. You are there, and everyone else has a cool story. You're experiencing it alongside them, right?
But
whereas
you don't really have
Dark Urge gives you a story. And I'm not surprised that you got that reaction, because before the game came out, they were talking about like Dark Urge is not for the faint of heart. I think the director was like, we do not recommend this for your first playthrough, which I think is just supremely bad advice. The Dark Urge is so much more interesting than just being a nobody, right?
Yeah.
You get that personal investment,
And like,
I guess some people could be really turned off.
mystery.
Yeah, some people could be really turned off by how explicit that content is. The Dark Urge is a very, very bad person.
It does get very shocking at times, and like, I don't know, I'm glad I went with that for my first playthrough, because I think, especially for me, where like the joy of sharing video games, specifically on Twitch, is like how animated I tend to be when like I'm surprised by something. So a lot of those dirge moments, it's just like, there's no way to like calmly react to that. So
Did you kick the squirrel? Yeah. I wish there were more Dark Urge moments throughout the game.
That fucked me up so bad. I was crushed.
Like many video games, the first third of Baldur's Gate 3 is much more robust than the rest of it, because it's where most of the development time goes.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know you did Dirge as your first playthrough as well.
Well, I got the same reaction, because all my friends were like, "That's crazy, bro. What are you doing?" And then as I was advocating for it, some of them started their playthroughs over. I'm like, no, trust me, guys, this shit
Nice.
slaps.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's another thing I would have done differently. I
Mm.
wouldn't do the origin characters where you can play as each of the companions. You can play through the
Oh,
game
well,
as
you can
Shadowheart
play
plays
as Asterion or
because there's
as...
so much content for that,
Yeah.
and I don't remember what the numbers were, but they came out and said like this is the percentage of players that play a custom character, that play Dirge, that play the companions. It's so much lower.
Yeah.
It's just like it's so much effort, and I know that they do it in all their games, but I've never really enjoyed it. It's like I don't want to be your character. I want to be me. I want to express
Yeah.
my shit, you know?
Yeah.
So I would do that so that I could have more, I could spend more resources on other things.
Other stuff. Okay. Okay, awesome. Staying on the BG3 track of things, you created I think a custom class for Baldur's Gate 3. So where did the idea for that mod come from, and what was the process for creating it?
Oh, well, like I said, Baldur's Gate 3 essentially runs on the D&D 5e rule set, and then so the class that I made, the Accursed, was a class that I had made years ago when I was in college. And so the process of it was just figuring out the modding tools and then translating tabletop mechanics to the game. Because I'd already made the class, so I didn't really have to do that much design work on it at that point. I came up with like one new subclass, and then there was stuff I had to rework because, you know, a lot of the social skills that you'll find in D&D, which are called ribbon abilities, where they don't really do any combat, they're just kind of flavor stuff, are not in Baldur's Gate 3 because they don't do anything. So stuff like, you know, when you use persuasion on a character who respects combat prowess, you get advantage, or like, you know, shit like that. It's like that kind of stuff is not in the game. And the idea came from two things. I was playing a character in a friend's game, who I was using a homebrew class based on the Dark Knight from Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, that's sick.
But it was ass. It was really, really bad. It was very underpowered. For example, by 6th level, all paladins get to do an extra d8 on every attack of radiant damage. They just get that for free. At 6th level, this Dark Knight homebrew, this is one thing I remember about it, could deal an extra d8 on every attack if they spent one of their hit dice. So it's like, I can do the thing that paladins do for free by killing myself. I'm like, that's not, what the heck? I'm like so weak compared to everyone. And then I ended up respecking that character into a paladin, because paladins are the best. And played that game like that, but I still was like, damn, that Dark Knight was so crap. How would I do it differently? So that's why I made the Accursed. And I got to do some playtesting with it, not myself, but I had players use it. I think 3 or 4 times I had a player use the class. So it got some good testing and it went through a couple iterations, but I hadn't looked at it in like 5 or 6 years. So, you know, just taking it out of the banks, blowing the dust off, and then putting it into Baldur's Gate 3, basically.
So what is the Accursed? It's like a spin on Paladin?
Well, it was... no, it's mechanically, it's most similar to a barbarian in that you enter a state. For barbarians, it's rage, and for the Accursed, it's dark side, which is stolen directly from Final Fantasy 14. But thematically, it's based on that character that I played in that D&D game, where it's like you're a fucked up little guy. That's the lore. You have a curse inside of you, and you tap into it to fuel your ability. Gotcha. That is the lore. That is the flavor. That is the fantasy of the character, and the mechanics of the character or of the class is you spend your hit points to deal damage. That's sort of the thing that made it worth existing on its own.
Gotcha.
Because as they say, flavor is free. You you could play a paladin, and I did, that has a curse and uses the curse to fuel their abilities. You can just say that,
Yeah.
and then that's how it can work, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. The mechanics are the same. So having something mechanically unique is more important when it comes to creating something new for a tabletop game
Mm.
than having something that's thematically unique.
Mm.
Because thematics are super malleable. You can really make anything work
Yeah.
um, with any other existing class for the most part.
And it's an added layer of difficulty too, because you're having to like there's a lot of things you have to kind of ration in Baldur's Gate, like your spell slots and your
Mhm.
number, like how far you can walk, and like all these mechanics that were very new to me. So then also having to like take in how much health you have. I mean, like how much of this can I sacrifice to deal damage is a very interesting.
Well, the class was buffed in Baldur's Gate 3 just because you can drink potions as a bonus action, and also because potions are very,
Ah,
very plentiful. It's part of the problem of trying to turn hit points into a resource is that you have to consider all the things in the game that affect hit points, which is just healing in general.
mm.
Um, and so I made it percentage based. Is that every time you take damage from your dark side, it's always 10% of your health. So even if you're buffing your health by
Oh,
one way or another, it's always going to be 1/10 of your health getting chunked off.
dang.
But there's a plus side, right? You do a lot of damage.
Mm.
Like the barbarian gets resistance to all physical damage. The accursed gets resistance to all damage except for radiant.
That makes
So
sense.
they're a little tankier than the barbarian, and they get a couple of abilities that are all about self healing. Um,
Okay.
so there are trade offs. Playing it seemed pretty balanced with other classes every time we did play test it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they tended to be very explosive in either direction. They were doing a lot of damage or they were getting killed very quickly, which is sort of the risk and reward idea behind the class. So I think it
Yeah,
was
and part of the
best in that regard.
challenge of learning how to play that class, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
it's a risk that you accept that it might not go your way,
yeah,
which is part of playing any game, really.
yeah. And if someone wanted to add this mod or like play as like the accursed class, like where is it available? How
You
do they go
just
about getting it?
It's on all platforms in the official mod manager. So you just
Okay.
launch Baldur's Gate 3, you go down to mods, you click it, you type in accursed, and then that's where it is.
Ooh,
And you
I
download it.
expected it to be a lot harder.
No, no, no. Yeah, that's yeah, it's not like well, I guess like Skyrim and Fallout do have mod managers built in now, but back in the day they did
Back in
not.
my day,
You
yeah.
had to go and install everything yourself, mess around with folders,
Because
but it's super
I
easy
thought
now.
this was just like the class you created would only be available on PlayStation. That was my misunderstanding. Is that it was only compatible with the PS5 version.
No, it's on all versions. Whenever you push an update, it goes on PC almost immediately,
Wow.
but then there's a long review cycle that Larian does before
Okay.
they can approve you for console, because consoles have all these rules about the types of content that can be in there.
Right.
So Larian has to go in and check it, make sure there's nothing stolen in there, stuff
Yeah.
like that, before they,
Little do
well,
they know you stole the concept from Final Fantasy 14.
that's fair use. It's transformative. It's not a market substitute for anything else. And
Oh
I
my
don't
god.
think I don't know. Dark Side, you can't copyright Dark Side. That's, I'm
No.
stealing that.
And like I don't know, like Star Wars 2 has like
Yeah, the
the
dark
dark
side.
side and like channel your anger, like it's not a
No, I more
super.
so meant like stolen assets.
Oh,
Models
not
ripped from other
stolen
games
ideas.
or shit like that. Yeah, yeah. No, ideas
Okay.
are cheap.
Yeah.
Everyone steal ideas. It doesn't matter. Being a designer is all about stealing. Frankly, a game designer or a dungeon master, it's all about. And then the more obscure your references, the better a designer you are.
Oh my god. All right, we are on my last slide.
Oh, wow.
So if oops, I closed it. It's back. Sorry. We're on my last slide. So if anyone listening has any questions, feel free to start typing them in chat and I will get to them in sequence. They can be about Baldur's Gate, they can be about D&D, they can be about other aspects of game design, questions you're just curious about. It can be about our siblinghood, like really whatever you want. But my last question, which is kind of just like it's kind of a catch-all question, it could go in any direction, is as an employee at an indie studio, is there anything that you would like to share or discuss about the behind the scenes of the games industry, specifically in 2025? I know it's very broad, so feel free to take it in any direction.
That everyone is holding on for dear life. The I don't know. Does talking about the economy really is that interesting? I don't know, but
Do what you want.
there were a lot of there have been a lot of problems with investment in the games industry recently, mostly caused by a conglomerate called Embracer Group, which had borrowed a bunch of money from a lot of banks in a lot of different countries, and then defaulted on a lot of it, which scared many, many banks all over the world into not wanting to invest in the games industry, which tightened the belts of everyone, indie developers, AAA, because like any industry, government, um, the ability to borrow money, be it from the government or from banks or from publishers, is a big part of how it works. You get an investment, you develop a product, and then there's a return on that investment. And because all of the banks were burned so badly by the Embracer Group fiasco, amongst others, um, that flow of investment has tightened a lot. And so our studio suffered from that quite a bit. We're still hanging on. um, and things are getting better. You know, we were just at Gamescom, talking to a bunch of publishers there, and the interest now seems a lot better than it was over the last 2 to 3 years, where it was really, really tough to get anyone to talk seriously about publishing. But the budgets have shrunk. You know, no one's going to be investing 15 million in an indie game in the near future. It's really about 1.5 to 4 million investments. So the games are smaller in the indie space for the most part. And so just know that everyone is fighting for their life.
Yeah.
Be nice. We're trying to make games for people to enjoy, and that shit ain't easy.
No.
It ain't easy.
And like that's a big reason why like right now I've been playing like Horizon Zero Dawn, and I just finished like Ghost of Tsushima and stuff like that, so I haven't had as much of a focus on like indie projects. But one of the reasons like from the outset of like starting streaming that I was like, oh, I want to really put a spotlight on these projects that like maybe people know about but are from like very small studios, or projects that people have never heard of and they're like, oh, this is really cool, like I want to give it a try. Like that's one extra sale for that, you know, that indie company that perhaps I had a hand in generating. And this is nice to like, especially when you hear about all like the culture problems in AAA spaces. And that's not to say that like indie developers are immune from like having bad bosses or bad workplace culture, but I feel like there's a lot more visibility on like who is behind the scenes in an indie company, because you can like usually it's smaller teams and it's not like anyone's getting lost in the noise, I guess, like as an employee, or having their problems like swept under the rug by any means. So it's nice to try and like support indie when and where we can. Yes, more indie soon, because Gib hit 200 coins. I'll be playing an indie game again finally.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, not to shame anyone either. There's like 100 games that come out every single day.
Yeah.
Like they can't all succeed. That is the sad reality of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, the indie space suffers from landlord syndrome, where you get a lot of petty tyrants, right? Who have their own little kingdom of 4 employees that they abuse, and that shit sucks too, you know.
Yeah.
Unions are kind of where the future of all labor really is at.
Yeah.
But I guess I won't. I don't know. Get into that. But you know, the proletariat, whatever, something.
I mean, you can if you want, but I'm just trying to think if there's anything that we talked about that I want to like expand on.
I'm not in that scenario. Also, I do not. I am very lucky. I'm in a very
You're like, I'm
good.
happy. I swear this isn't a cry for help.
No. Yeah. I have heard of these horror stories, and you've witnessed them with people like the guy who made Braid, or Notch, or High Pro, formerly indie guys that it was revealed that they were kind of shitty people. So
I haven't heard of either of those games, so I'm like, whew, I missed it.
That's good. No, the guy who made Minecraft.
Oh, is the Minecraft guy a stinker?
He's a stinker.
He's a stinker.
Don't look up his tweets.
I won't. That's an area I'm happy to be ignorant in. Jess has a question. This feels loaded, Jess. What's Vincent's favorite D&D player he's played or played with?
Player?
Wait, character?
What do you mean character?
Favorite D&D character he's played or played with?
I guess I'll answer in two parts. That I've played. I have a soft spot in my heart for my second D&D character. Who was a Russian dragonborn monk that I spec'd into strength instead of dexterity.
It's incredible.
Because I wanted to be strong, even though it's the wrong way to play a monk. Yeah, because I got to do the funny Russian voice. Well, maybe I shouldn't say funny, I don't know. But I got to do the Russian accent.
I mean, it's funny when you do it, I think.
Yeah, so that was fun. Not particularly highbrow or anything, but it's fun to just be goofy. My favorite D&D character that I played with, I mean, you know the answer, Jess. It was Groon, the Grung, who was a murderous frog who was definitely an agent of chaos.
Oh, this was one of Jess's characters, right?
This was in Curse of Strahd, who wanted to eat everything they found and was robbing the people we were trying to help.
Oh my god.
But in a way where it's like you would catch them and smack their hand and be like, "Oh, you," and then they'd be like, "I want to eat a bird" or something.
You're like, "Please stop." Oh my god.
Oh yeah, and you tell them to knock it off, and then Groon's catchphrase was, "Come on now, come on now, let me do that."
Chris has a question. Have we talked about romancing other players in D&D? I heard it's not recommended, but not sure if you had any first-hand experience.
I've never had players romance one another. I don't know what that would look like. In the first campaign that I ran, every single person ended up romancing an NPC. And
sorry, Chris just wrote in all caps, not planning on it, by the way.
No, I don't. It can be. I don't know. I guess there are horror stories out there, but to me, it's another expression of, heroic fantasy. Han gets with Leia, or save the princess. All those kinds of tropes, right? Where it can be just another thing to invest your character into the game world. In the same way that your character might have a best friend, or your character might have parents. It's like your character having a romantic interest. It's kind of within the same category. We don't role play you and your best friend going to the pub for a pint just because it's not very interesting for anyone else. And that way we don't role play you and your romantic interest doing romantic things together, because that's not very interesting for the rest of the table either.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the face of it, I think it's another way to get invested in the game world, and it's more fodder for me as a DM to kidnap your loved ones, right? So that's always fun.
And so when people are romancing NPCs, you have to play the NPC they're romancing.
Yeah,
because you are all the NPCs.
I do, and I generally find that easier. The thing that I hate the most is role-playing children.
Oh.
I find that the hardest to do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, role-playing as another character's romantic interest. I don't know. I guess it depends on your tolerance for Twilight-esque dialogue, I guess is how embarrassing you'd find it, you know.
Fair.
It's not really more explicit, well, than the first book, I'll say. I'm not talking about, you know, it gets a lot more explicit in the later books.
We can't get into Breaking Dawn.
No, Breaking Beds, you know. But yeah, I don't know. It's not any more. I guess it's maybe a little more awkward. But children is the most awkward. I just can't. I hate it. I don't know. Something about it. It'd be like I have to pretend to be like, I don't know, like a half a person. I can't say. Should I say that? I don't know.
You heard it here, folks. Children are half of a person.
It's only half of a murder if you kill them. No, I don't know. It's just like I don't know. I don't know how to articulate it really.
I mean,
role playing as kids is awkward for me.
I feel like trying to put yourself in the headspace of like, because kids are very, for the most part, very innocent and
you know
like.
What, you know what is? Kids aren't cool. You know, you can role play a character. It's like, oh, it's just so stoic and awesome, and it's like, oh, it's badass, and they do this thing, or they're crazy and zany, and they're, don't kill me, or they're like a creepy little goblin. Kids are not cool, and they're not fun to be around. So it's like they're either annoying you or they're hysterically, and I don't like doing either of those things.
Oh my god!
In a D&D game.
Oh my god! Vince, just be a Skyrim kid. That's what Chris said.
Yeah, I mean, probably the most comfortable way to roleplay children is the way that most screenwriters write children, which is just they're tiny adults.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot more digestible than it actually having to spend time around a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like, yeah, trying to, like, I'm thinking of, like, our nephew. Like, inserting him into a fantasy setting. I don't know. I wouldn't want to roleplay that either, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it can be kind of funny as, like, a gag, which I have done before, like an annoying kid who doesn't give straight answers.
Yeah.
But in terms of like inserting a child into a dramatic situation, like I've never put like a child in danger in like one of my games because it's just like that's not. I don't want to play that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not because I find some people, you know, there are many tools that people use before starting a game to say what kind of content they don't want to see in their game for one reason or another. And myself personally, I don't have a problem with violence against children. In the context of a story.
I was like, please add the context of a story. No one clip that out of context.
Please do. It'd be so funny.
No!
Yeah, but like I just don't, you know, the idea of being like a blubbering child that's like, oh, thank you so much for saving me. Just like, the whole thing just turns my stomach. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And you want to make sure, like...
don't let the goblins eat me. I don't know, whatever.
It's like, you're trying to create an enjoyable experience, like, for your players as the DM, but you also want to enjoy it. So creating scenarios that like, you'll have fun with, and you'll have fun acting out.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, because if you're not having fun, then, like... I feel like being a selfless DM and like doing things that you're gonna absolutely hate for the sake of your players is like maybe you can do that once or twice. So I feel like if you make a habit of that, then you're just not gonna enjoy DMing anymore.
No, I certainly wouldn't recommend it. And I think for anyone who's being a game master, that you are also a player, right? You're not a player character, but you are a player at the table. You know, you're playing a game with your friends. And so, yeah, your enjoyment is definitely just as important.
Yeah. Okay. If you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you gonna love someone else? That's from Jess.
Can I get an amen?
Amen. Well, that is all of my questions. And I had a feeling we weren't gonna be able to fill the whole 3 hours because I was like, I don't think I have that in me. But so our options are, we can either talk about the campaign that you're going to run for me, Do, and Jess, as much as we can talk about it without you like spoiling your players. Or I can let you go, and then I will pivot to co-working, and I'm the new train DLC on Spirit City. You can make like a castle out of your train, and I figure that'd be a cute thing to do before I like caption a YouTube video or something until I have to hand the train off. So it's really up to you. If you want to keep yapping, we can talk about the upcoming campaign we're working on. And you know, the I told you so of me saying I'm never gonna play D&D. Or you can be free. It's up to you.
I mean, like you said, I don't want to spoil anyone.
That's
so I don't know how much I can share.
That's true.
So I will opt out of that.
Okay, that is fair. That is fair. Well, oh, wait, Chris's question. I launched the game in order to see the things, question mark?
Huh?
I don't know. I launched the game in order to see the things? I don't know what you're talking
What does that mean, dude?
I hit launch and got scared.
Yeah, I don't know. Just going forward, what could go wrong? What do you think?
Just keep going, Chris. I think she's
Let me
trying
see
to
if
like
you're in.
explore...
Are we just gonna live troubleshoot you guys joining the game?
I mean, if I open too many things, our Discord cameras will disappear.
Sure. Oh, I see you in here, dude.
Hey, Dewdrop did it. Maybe that's what I can do in my co-working, though, is as I co-work, I can open up the thing. I don't even remember what it's called.
Go for it. Well, just go click the link. Here, I'll walk you both through it. I know you already know what you want to play, right? You want to be a...
I want to be a ranger. That walk...
And for you...
Fey walking. Gib has a question.
What's up?
Are there any classes suited for people who are totally new to D&D? Like, any suggestions that would make their experience easier or more palatable?
Yeah, anything that doesn't do spells. Because spells are very much an archaic system in that it's like something that exists separately from your class. Like, if you have a character class in another game, like Diablo or something, like, the abilities that you get fundamentally work the same. There's a tree of abilities, you want stuff, you get to use them.
Mm-hmm.
But the way spells work in D&D is that the list of spells in the world is like a thing that exists in the world. Everyone in the spell Featherfall is the same for you as it is for the bad guys.
Flashbacks.
And so playing a spellcaster means looking through all of the spells that exist in the world of the game and being like, which ones do I want? What do they do? They're formatted differently from like the fighter's ability to restore some HP as a bonus action. So it's just a lot more reading to do as a spellcaster. If you want a straightforward time, fighter, barbarian, rogue. Maybe rogue even is just because I feel like the whole hiding mechanic and sneak attack thing is something that's not well understood by many game masters or players. And so there can be frustrations there, I think, if you are new and your dungeon master is new. Mm-hmm. But yeah, avoid spellcasting if you're worried about it being overcomplicated. The game is not so complicated that I don't think you couldn't manage doing whatever, but if it's something you're concerned about, then I would pick like a fighter or barbarian for sure.
We have another question from Pop. So Popular Think is the streamer who put together this raid train, also put together the queer and creative raid train that I was a part of over the summer. Pop is asking, I have a little question. I've been lurking, so apologize if it's already been brought up. I know a lot of folks are intimidated by the role-playing aspect. Is it welcome to discuss your character in third person rather than first person as a way to break that intimidation?
Of course. I think I started doing it that way.
Sorry, while you answer, I'm going to go piss because I'm about to pee myself.
I would say, like, my character says this, Jess, when you started, it was the same. And I think for many players start that way. It's just more comfortable, maybe less vulnerable to speak that way. Whether or not it is acceptable would depend on your game master, I guess. But if your game master told you, no, you can't do that, then I would be very suspicious. of that game master and why they are so particular about such things, because I find the behavior totally harmless. It's totally fine. It's functionally the same as speaking in first person, um, in my opinion. Um, yeah, and like Jess, you say, you still do it most of the time, so uh, there's really no problem with it. I know at some tables, when it comes to like what is acceptable or not, like how much people can speak out of character, like share knowledge with one another, not in character. I know at some tables it's like really heavy regulated. I never really played that way. I think the goal is to be more immersive, but I love joking around, so I love talking out of character at the table, um, just because it's fun. But I can see how it relieves issues of metagaming to an extent as well. So
Sorry, I'm back. Yeah, I feel like third person is probably the way I would approach it. Um, I had a friend recently ask me, they're like, would you ever get into like voice acting? And I was like, I very recently did my first like very amateur voice acting thing for a friend.
oh,
And
fun.
it was so, like, I could not get out of my own head. It was so awkward, and like, I didn't enjoy it. So I don't know if that's just like, because of the discomfort or like,
Where do we go to hear this agony you suffered?
oh, so my friend Riggy, I believe 2K3, is re-releasing his game Deluge. Um, I think the original one is now called like Deluge 2003 or something, and then the newer one will be releasing soon-ish. I actually don't remember the release date. But yeah, I got to do a little bit of amateur voice acting there, and it was like
Fun.
very, very uncomfortable. And I don't know. I feel like if I were ever get into doing more voices in general, because I've done like, like if you watch
Play, play D&D as Stitch.
as oh my god, the Stitch voice. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
dude.
The original is only $1 on Steam, and you can wishlist the new one too. Yay! Yeah, support
Oh,
indie
fun.
devs. Speaking of, and Riggy is lovely. It was really fun to like work on the voices for him. As uncomfortable as it was, like I remember, I think one of my lines. Well, it was mostly just like sound effects. One of my my lines, I guess, was like an evil laugh, and like I ran out of air like halfway through, and I was like, Ricky, I'm so sorry. This is what I came up with. I'm like, if you need me to do it again, just let me know. He used the laugh where I'm running out of air, and I'm like, that's incredible. Because like
Awesome.
I think I like my lungs ran out of steam, but I also just like was feeling so awkward, like, and I would only record when Chris was at home. Um, so it was a very interesting thing. But bringing it back to D&D is like I've done some voices. Like when I eventually published my Final Fantasy VII like 1997 version VODs, like I think you'll hear me like slipping in and out of trying to do voices. I'll like try
Oh,
one
nice.
stream and then stop trying. Like I think for Aerith specifically, I like tried to like put on like the higher register like airy voice that like her remake voice actress does, and some days I would try, some days I wouldn't. It was very funny. Um, Pop says, I've never played D&D before, but really want to. But the role playing has been. That's how I feel as well, Pop. So, like, for the longest time, because I love RPGs so much, um, people, like, chatters in stream, my brother, have all been like, you'd probably really enjoy D&D. Like, just give it a try. And I'm like, no, like, I love that other people love it, but it's just not for me. Like, I will love it from afar, da 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 da, and it's gonna be really funny to like when I'm editing, because I edit footage from like 3 years ago at this point. I'll be editing old footage, listening to myself saying, "I'm never gonna play D&D," and then fast forward to 2025, and I mean, we're not playing yet. We're putting together characters and stuff, but um, I'm actually very excited. Just trying to voice act near characters, but only ever sounding like a meal. Oh my
I
god.
understand the anxiety behind it, because tabletop games are kind of like it's a social activity, and it's kind of like therapy in that if you get the wrong people involved, it could go terribly for you.
Mm,
So it might take time to find a group and play style that you jive with.
mm-hmm.
Um, but the best bet is to play with people that you already know and trust. And it's just a game that you're playing with people, with your friends. You're just playing a game, right?
Yeah.
So organizing that way, I feel like is a safe way. And if no one knows how to run the game in that scenario, if you go to your friends and say, "Hey, I want to run D&D for you guys," they'll probably say yes.
Yeah. Pop says, my little autistic, socially anxious self really would have to make sure it's the right people I play with. I'm the same way, which is why Vince saying, like, let's play a campaign, like, you, me, KG Dewdrop is our sister, and then Solar Plexus Kinder Shboo is my brother's fiance, Jess. So that's gonna be our little group for this campaign, and, like, I really don't know who else I would be comfortable playing D&D with. Like, I've had people offer, like, oh, if you ever want to do a one-shot, like, I can run a one-shot for you in Discord or something, da-da-da, and I'm like, that is so kind. But how do you kindly tell someone that, like, I'm just not at that level of comfort? Like, even when it comes to co-op games and stuff, like, I'm a very solitary little bean. So I don't play co-op games very often and such, and usually it has to be people I'm already, like, quite comfy with, so I get that.
I think role-playing is something of a vulnerable experience as well. Not because you have to put on a performance for other people, but because you are displaying your creativity in a way,
Yeah.
And so with that comes the anxiety of, do other people like what I'm doing? Is this fun for others? Does anyone think I'm weird for the decisions that I made about my character? And so trusting that all of your creativity will be received respectfully is a big part of that level of comfort, right? And also, how much do you care about being judged, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's what's funny for, like, a lot of us in, like, nerd spaces. I think a lot of us are quite socially anxious, or, like, maybe because, like, in your upbringing, like, you were bullied a lot for having your niche interests and whatnot. It's hard to, like, put that trust in people. So I feel like that's really the first big hurdle for getting into, like, tabletop games like this, is, like, finding that group that you can, like, safely be creative and express yourself with. But luckily, because a lot of folks in the, gaming nerdy space do have kind of that shared experience, hopefully there's a bit more empathy around, like, being that level of vulnerable with each other. Jess said, I'm excited for our game, but struggle with role-playing too. But like Vincent said before, it's really just putting yourself in your character's shoes. He's always said I do well at that, so that helps my confidence a lot with it. You're such a good partner.
I'm just saying it how it is, man.
It's such an awesome way to look at it. I hadn't thought about it that way before. What I'm hearing is, don't pay money for therapy, just use D&D as therapy.
I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend making a character as a proxy for dumping all of your personal issues into and making it everyone else's problem. It is a game.
I should add that Pop added a JK tone indicator.
True. I know. I'm not. I didn't think it was being seriously suggested.
Yeah. No, but I can imagine.
It's interesting to take the suggestion seriously.
Yeah, well, like, and I also imagine there are players that do that, and then that
people have said that. I'm sure it can work, but at the end of the day, you're putting your hopes for a corrective experience in the hands of people who are not necessarily prepared to give you that corrective experience.
Yeah.
And so that's why it could be dangerous.
And
for
also on the, like, for the person perhaps doing that behavior for sure, but also, like, depending on what aspect of their, mental health or trauma that they're baking into their character, like, did the rest of the party consent to having that discussed? And I think just having that mutual understanding with everyone at the table about, like, what are we comfortable discussing, like, what themes are we allowing to be present. I know that there's been a lot of I'm definitely not the best person to talk about this because I'm not in the D&D space, and B, I can never like repackage what I've read online very well. But there's been a lot of discussions about like not necessarily like trauma informed D&D, but like there's been people have been making like guidebooks on like D&D with inclusivity, and then also like I think Vince, you and I talked about it a while ago about like the sometimes certain like classes or races can have like racial undertones that make people uncomfortable, and so like being able to understand that and talk about that with your party before you get started, so it's a comfortable experience for everyone. I think that's
it's
important.
I think the new umbrella term for it is just safety tools.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of, and I could not think of the words.
Yeah, and it's formalized in a lot of new books. I believe they talk about safety tools you can use in the new edition of Dungeons and Dragons and Draw Steel. I'm pretty sure I saw that as well. But there's lots of different techniques, right? And if you're playing with strangers, you should definitely go through those steps. If you're playing with people that you know well, then it's probably not a bad thing to go through those steps still, because there may be sensitivities that you may not be aware of. But you also know your friends, I'm sure, to an extent. And in the event of anything making anyone uncomfortable, what's most important is to talk about it and learn and adjust. Because if you care about the experience that other people are having, then you should care about any particular sensitivities that they have.
Yeah, and this is like, not that I had any doubts going into our campaign before, but it's like talking to you today about like all the different, because again I'm like, I want to make sure I'm asking interesting questions for like people to watch and for you to answer, so you don't feel like you're just kind of.
They've been good. I'll give you some reassurance.
Let's go.
I think I've talked a lot. So.
But I wanted to ask questions that like also I was interested in. But overall, the conversation has just given me like a lot of confidence in like going into my first like real D&D campaign, because we did a one-off like 2 years
we
ago?
Played for like 45 minutes. It was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, we did not give our all to it. I think like I did you a disservice by not really like giving it a fair shot.
Well, I showed up. I showed up with pre-made characters, and the idea was to be like, this is kind of what this is like, and I thought that would be a good decision, because you guys didn't have to take on like the mental burden of like looking at the rules beforehand, making characters, etc., etc. But now this time I'm like, dude, like making characters is like awesome.
Yeah,
it's
fun.
People enjoy that, so that's probably how I should have done it then.
I think honestly, I think 2025 is a good year for me to be starting this, like just in terms of like having played Baldur's Gate 3 and having a bit more of an understanding, because even if anyone listening was around for my Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough, I almost rage quit because I was like spells weren't being effective and I was dying constantly, and I'm like, I don't freaking understand any of these mechanics. And I had pre-ordered like a special edition of Baldur's Gate 3 because I wanted a physical disc. That was the only way I could get it. So I had all these cool like BG3 goodies, and I remember did I call you, Vince, or did I text you being like, I spent like $90 on this game, I don't even want to play it anymore.
We definitely talked. I don't remember if it was a text or a call.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I was like crashing out, being like, I don't want to play this game anymore, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so confused. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but you're basically like, you're capable, like I know you can. You're like, just like break it down, like this is why this wasn't working, this is why that isn't working. So the next stream, I spent the first like hour like writing down each of my characters, what stats they're strong in, what does that mean. I remember the first thing you told me, you're like, take that spell off of Asteria and he can't use it. I'm like, so why did I give it to him? And so
I mean, playing Baldur's Gate 3 is kind of mechanically much more difficult than learning how to play D&D because you are learning 4 to 8 characters all at once
Yeah, it
versus
was very overwhelming.
the one you have to care about, which is just your own character in normal D&D.
When Baldur's Gate 3 finally clicked, I had an absolute ball. That's how I felt too. Like, I stopped, like, as I got new companions, I stopped taking notes on their stats the way I did for my first ones, because I kind of was like, I was in a place of comfort, where, like, I was a bit more capable, I guess, of playing the, like, I guess of understanding the mechanics. I'm, like, losing the ability to form sentences, but you know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel as overwhelmed when I got a new character. It was overall just, like, a very enjoyable experience, and I do think that playing Baldur's Gate 3 first before getting into D&D was, like, the right move for me personally. Very overwhelming, because if you don't know a lot about D&D, going into Baldur's Gate 3, you're like, what is advantage? I don't understand. So it could be very overwhelming, which it was for me, but when you get over it, now I feel like I have a good baseline for when we do start our D&D campaign of, like, oh, like, I might need to ask for clarification on things, but I have, like, a semi-good understanding of, like, what,
You think that because you had anxiety about knowing the rules before playing with others, or was it more the anxiety of just not knowing what to expect in general, just from the format?
For D&D?
Yeah, like why was Baldur's Gate 3 such a help? What anxiety did it assuage for you?
I think the idea of, like, being able to try again, for sure, because, like, I'm a filthy save scummer, so the fact that, and I'm gonna try and, like, I'm trying to, like, do things that make me uncomfortable in, like, a safe capacity, of course, but I think when we do our game, I'm gonna try not to bribe you to let me reroll, you know, and just, like, take the losses or the unexpected outcomes as they come. I also do think it being, like, a solitary experience, because I know you can play Baldur's Gate 3 with other people, but I feel like it's more so designed as a single-player game. So I think having that solitary experience to kind of learn within and not have it be... And again, like, with the group that we're going to be playing with, Vince, like, I don't have concerns about this, because when we play Magic the Gathering together, Chris and I are constantly being like, what does this card mean, and stuff. But I think just the idea of, like, being able to learn in my own time, and, like, yeah, having that degree of control over every single character.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a bit of a control freak, but I think it'll be exciting to, like, do something more collaborative, and I love video games, I love my screens, I love my TikTok time, but, like, also having something that, like, I know we'll be playing online, but, like, a hobby that was
it's
originally
human to human interfacing.
Yeah, it's like a hobby that was originally grounded in, like, you don't need a computer to do it, and you don't need like, an expensive console or whatever, and like, we'll be doing it online for convenience sake, because that's where all your stuff is, and it'll be easier for us to coordinate getting together. Like, we don't live far from each other, but I like the idea of, like, having a hobby that isn't grounded in like, I guess, constant stimuli, because I have enough of those hobbies, you know.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
You had to use your imagination a bit more. Like, you'll have the visual aids of, like, you know, the dungeons you've built and, like, our character portraits and stuff. But yeah, I think it'll be nice to, like, flex those imagination muscles a little bit.
Well, as you said, as like a relapsed theater kid, right? Just being able to tap into that imagination that you once had, playing on the playground, pretending to be a Power Ranger or a princess or whatever.
Oh my god, and we would,
you know, being able to recapture that.
LARPing in the woods.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I've snoozed ads 3 times. We have about 3 minutes until they pop again, but I'll try and tell this story quickly, and then we'll go on a break, and either I can let you go at that point, or you can come back and say bye. It's up to you, Vince. But Vince and I, when we were young, I didn't know it was LARPing at the time, but we would LARP in the woods. We would.
I don't know if I knew that either, to be honest.
We would go into the woods. We'd find.
I think we were operating on vibes.
Yeah, we would find like our favorite stick, and I'm like, okay, this is my sword, and then I remember we'd try to hide our sticks, so that the next time we came back, we would try and find those same sticks. They were never there. They were never there. Damn. They were always gone. Because like there were animals in that ravine, you know.
And those were nice sticks. Those were premium real estate.
Really nice sticks.
All the animals wanted those sticks, dude.
But yeah, we would bridge to Terabithia essentially without the tragedy. Like we would just like fight imaginary monsters. Like we were never fighting each other. We were on the same team. And then Vince would just be like, behind you, there's a monster, da, da, da. And like...
I don't remember this. That's awesome, though.
And I can...
I do believe you,
I can tell you exactly, like, which conservation area it was in, Vince. Like, not on stream, obviously, Doxy McDoxface, but, yeah,
no
it's like... No. We've been, you know... creative and like engaged with like fantasy and role-playing like our whole lives, and a lot of that for me is thanks to you. Like I'd watch you play video games because I was too scared to play them, and then I started playing them with you sitting beside me because I was too scared to play them by myself, and then eventually I graduated to play them by myself, and now I've been playing video games on the internet for almost 5 years. So thank you, Vincent, for this channel existence, basically.
You're right, it's all me.
It's all you.
You can redirect your PayPal to mine for all Twitch subscriptions for the future as your benefactor.
I mean,
no, but for all those reasons, I'm very excited to play with you guys. Yeah. And so you got to do your homework, or we're not gonna play.
I'll do my homework right after this, actually. So we have ads popping in about a minute. Vince, thank you so much for letting me interview you, even while I'm on the verge of death. I'm glad.
You know what? I forgot it, so you did a good job.
Sick. So I'm glad that you also had a good time. I totally forgot to record, so I will download it off of Twitch because I want to keep this forever. But we will be saying goodbye to Vince, but I will be pivoting to some co-working. I'm gonna go on the break screen. But everyone say thank you, Vince. And yeah, I hope to do more, like, not necessarily interviews, but new stuff like this in the future. Maybe more collaborative stuff with Vince in the future. Because he's my brother, but he's also one of my best friends. Whee! Okay. All right, break time. Goodbye, Vince. Have a good night. And when we come back, I will do co-working stuff. All right, see you soon. Bye, Vince.
Bye-bye.